in any way. In fact, they're, even despite what's going on right now, are much closer to the U.S. That being said, just the potential for crime in Mexico means that you could potentially be the target of some sort of political retaliation, and then maybe it's dressed up like some sort of local crime, or you got into the wrong place at the wrong time type of thing. So that's kind of concerning. That being said, I think it's relatively safe. Brazil as well. This is a country that has quickly fallen under Chinese influence. Again, still probably much more aligned with the West. Wouldn't be too concerned about it, but with a crime right there, similar to Mexico, you might be in a situation where you could be the victim of a crime that turns out maybe China had something to do with it. That's just a theory. Also, I'm gonna throw in India. India, not aligned with China whatsoever, but not the safest country in the world. That being said, actually, I think India would be safer than most of these countries on the B tier list here. I think their historical stance of having dissent against governments, like that makes it kind of an okay thing, especially if it was against like a foreign government or an adversarial government. India kind of considers China like, not an enemy, but like definitely a strong adversary, so I think you'd be fine there. Now we're gonna be moving on to the C tier, which I'm going to declare as moderately dangerous. These are countries where I think you would actually run into some problems if China really had it out for you. If you were like a low-level dissident, or you just said some stuff online, or it wasn't that big of a deal, it didn't like gain massive traction, or it didn't piss off the government enough, I think you'd probably be fine in these places, but this is where you have to start actually being concerned. Pakistan, very engaged with China economically, therefore probably a massive potential for doing things on behalf of China to make China happy. I would be very careful in Pakistan. Malaysia, very safe country. I think this is a country where you don't have too much concern. However, they're deepening ties with China. I think if you were high enough on that list where China was like looking for you because you were organizing protests or something, I think Malaysia might not be a safe bet for you anymore. That's something I would have had a different opinion of like years ago, but I think has become increasingly more under China's fold. Serbia is an interesting one. I mean, this is a European country. This is a country right on the border of EU states, right? Serbia is deeply under control of China now. In fact, I would say that their government is tantamount almost to a satellite state. That being said, I don't think they're willing to go full on, like go after protesters that were anti-China or anti-Chinese government, I should say, because there have been recent protests, successful protests, like where people have gone out and actually protested against China because of these failed infrastructure projects, these failed BRI, Belt and Road Initiative projects, with things falling down and actually killing people. So I would say huge Chinese influence in Serbia, probably a lot of political influence as well. I think they have a joint police force, in fact. That being said, I don't think they're willing to piss off the entire world community to the extent of like just going after China dissidents. Venezuela is a tricky one. I think the political chaos and the amount of Chinese influence that China has been, exerting over Venezuela has made it a very risky place to be if you were a China dissident. I think you would be afforded some sort of cover because of how crazy it is there, so maybe you could kind of just blend in with the chaos. Given there is a relationship with China at a political level, I don't think they would go after dissidents like super, super hardcore like some of the other places we're gonna mention, but I would exert caution for sure. Algeria. Long-standing tradition of going after dissidents, and with the recent China connection, I would be exerting definite caution if I was in Algeria. Turkey as well. Turkey's relationship with China is very weird, but it is not necessarily consistent, and that kind of makes things a little bit worrying for me. The relationship with the whole Uyghur dissidents and Uyghurs running away from Western China, and the complicated process that they have in Turkey, and it becoming an increasingly more dangerous place for them to be as China dissidents, I would say I'm putting that on the C list now. It wouldn't be there before. Now let's just jump straight into the F list. This is the list of countries where if you were a China dissident, this country would actively go and take you and either send you to China or do something about you in their own country for China and report back to them. Like, this is the top worst places that you absolutely do not want to be if you have any sort of presence speaking out against the Chinese government or Chinese oppression. I would not go near these places. This is F tier. First of all is Egypt. Egypt looks to be collaborating with China on repression, silencing opponents. I think it's a very, very dicey place to be with Egypt trying to score points with China right now. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. I have a runner-up here where I don't know where to put it right now, but Thailand, I would previously have put it maybe on a B or a C tier. I'm probably gonna lean towards F tier now because they have forcibly removed Uyghurs and sent them back to China. I mean, these are just people that wanted to practice their religion, fled China because of persecution and going to concentration camps. There's a genocide in Western China right now, and then being sent back by Thailand. Thailand was kind of a safe haven before. I'm going to downgrade them probably to F tier. They're somewhere in the middle there. Russia is now cooperating with China on many, many things. Now, as you probably saw in my last video, if you haven't seen it yet, Russia and China are no friends. They are definitely not friends, and they're probably not even ideologically in line with a lot of things. They don't trust each other, but right now, given the current climate with China and Russia trying to kind of move away from the West and try to control their spheres of influence, they are collaborating on things like propaganda or restrictions on freedom of speech or trade and things like this. So I would definitely not go to Russia if you're a China dissident. Burma. Burma is not only a dangerous country, Myanmar, you might know it as, but China has so much control over some of the actual regions of Burma that there are parts of Burma that actually use the Chinese language and the Chinese currency, the RMB, and actually have just become de facto territories of China. Therefore, right now, I would not touch Burma with a 10-foot pole. I would not go to Myanmar. I think they would literally take care of you for China. Kazakhstan is very unfortunate because this is a country that was kind of opening up. It's an ex-Soviet state. It wasn't super tight with China, but it is now looking like it will do things on behalf of the Chinese government through sheer coercion. I think if you were a dissident, Kazakhstan would either send you back or they would do something with you at home now. And that's just unfortunate. I've always had a very deep interest in going to Central Asia, especially Kazakhstan. Those countries are very, very interesting to me. I probably wouldn't go to any of them anymore due to Chinese influence. Laos. Laos is basically a China satellite state, by the way. These are getting worse as I go up. Laos is a straight up China satellite state. Laos will take you and do something about you for China, probably without even asking, to be honest. This is China's basically taken over Laos' economy. They've taken over their political influence. They've taken over everything with the Belt and Road Initiative. When I was in Laos with my wife, we were already seeing things back in 2010 or something, of these areas that were under Chinese control. The signs were only in Chinese. They were only hiring Chinese workers to harvest rubber. All of these things were kind of quickly falling under China's influence. So I would definitely not go there. Cambodia is absolutely a no-go. It's basically